Okay, welcome back. Now this is the second part of our seminar. We will be now listening to the presentation of... Okay, welcome back. Now this is the second part of our seminar. Okay, sorry, something happened here. Here we go. We will be listening to Mina Nakiovani. She gained her bachelor's degree in architecture from Tabriz University, Iran, and she continued her study by gaining the 10th rank in the national entrance exam for the master level. Her master study was focused on the post-disaster reconstruction of post-disaster reconstruction at Shahid Beheshti University. After graduating from the university, she started to work as a researcher on housing study projects for the Tehran municipality and also on the investigation of Tabriz historical houses. Then she attended Tabriz University as a teaching assistant and started to join architectural design firms as a researcher and designer. She is currently a PhD student at Uzegin University, and her presentation title today is Comparing the Urban Tissue of Gavarsin Before and After the 2005 Earthquake. The floor is yours. We'll try to keep it within the 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen? The title of my research is Comparing the Urban Tissue of Gavarsin Before and After the 2005 Earthquake. As you may not familiar with the location of the region, it's in Iran, the south of Iran, here in the island, which is called Qesh Island. There is a village which called Gavarsin. Its climate is very hot and humid, and the architecture material are local. As you see, they are made of soil. And the cultural issues of Gavarsin, as they are working as a trader with Arabic and Indian countries, are very different from other parts of Iran. Here we define disaster. The earthquake happened in 2005, and the center of the earthquake was Tomban and Gavarsin villages. The damage caused to rebuild 240 residential units. As you see in the picture, the old village here was Gavarsin. The authorities wanted to relocate to merge Gavarsin and Tomban together, but the Tomban residents did not want to do that, and the Gabardine people wanted to resettle and relocate to another place. So this place provided for them to relocate to this area. And this is the importance of our research because the old village is going to be disappeared in the near future because they abandoned, and the architecture and the culture will disappear in the near future. The reason that they choose this area for new village as a relocated place, because they wanted to be near to their old villages, as they have some properties and they keep their animals there. They are not allowed to keep their animals in the new village. And they wanted to be near their palm gardens and also be near the main road to go to work to another cities. We first define the introduce the village, the climatic issues of village. As you see, the new village is so dense, and all the buildings are in one story. And this is the old village, and you can see the routes, and this diagram shows the location of the village, which is in a which in a slightly sloped place, and the breeze from sea came through the old village, but the new village is far from the sea, and it's in a flat place that the breeze cannot reach there. The land use plan shows these are the plots of the housings. The green one shows the green spaces. These shows the mosques, as in this old village, as you see, and this is the north point of the village. It's a water reservoir because the climate is dry. They design this to gather all floods and all the rainings happen to water their gardens later. So our methodology is analyzing the data through the Moratorian school. It says that the urban organism becomes real only in its historical dimension. Therefore, we can say that the type is synthesis, spontaneous, and changing reality that is always related to a specific culture. Building typologies are here, as we see. Our courtyard houses. This is the simple one, but some parts was damaged because of the earthquake. This is a mature, we can say, courtyard house. The lots are about 1,000 square meters. And they have extended families living in these houses. And because they are farmers, they need a lot of spaces for the storage and also animal husbandry. And this is another courtyard house. We can say this is the synchronic variant of this house, as it transforms through the years by adding several rooms around the yard. And here we have building typology of new village. As you see, in the new village, the authorities gave 200 meters lots for each family, and they just afford for 80 meters of the building construction. So they are basically like this, but if they have to put some money to invest in their houses, they can merge two lots to have bigger houses for extended families. As we said, their culture are different, and the boys of the family always lives with the father's family. So, and their houses are together. As we see here, I want to mention this. First, the designer planned the a line of houses for row houses and a line of houses as courtyard houses, but the residents wanted to change it because they don't want to have a facade looking to the roofs. They wanted a courtyard house, and also they wanted to detach from this wall to have natural ventilation because of the climate. So all the houses, as you see, have 1 meter distance from this wall, and mostly are the same. So investigation of the interior spaces of these houses, we can mention terraces as their important part in their climate. People during day do their activities in the terraces because of the bad weather. They wanted to live in a semi-open space. So having wide terraces are so important. But as you see, differences in the new village, it's not considered in the new village. The guest room, as we mentioned in the old village, they have extended family and also have a lot of connections because they are working as traders. So and they have always a guest. So they advocate a room for their guests in their houses. In the old village, but in the new village they cannot do that, and they just use their living room. And for the living room, there is a different place in old village, but in the new village, the corridor they use for living room, and the living room left for guest room. The kitchens are different in this area. They mostly have a second kitchen, sorry, and in the yard because they use mostly fish, and it has bad smell. They don't want to have a kitchen in their houses. They have some fancy kitchen in their house, but they don't use it. But in the new village, they cannot provide that second kitchen because there isn't enough space for that. So we go through the routes and the larger scale. As the Carnegie mentioned in his book, before erecting a building, there has to be a structure leading to its site. A route is by definition a structure apt to providing access to a place. Starting from another, the knowledge of route closely involves basic and specialized building typologies. So we have here matrix route in the old village, as you see. This line, the red line, we have matrix routes, and we can say most of the routes are going to give access to around this node water reservoir. In the new village, this blue line is the matrix route, and also these are planned building routes, we can say, and the cyan ones are connecting routes. The yellow ones are dead-end alleys, so we cannot call it route, I think. And this residential place, we can call it blocks. But in the old village, we can see that we have different styles of routes, as you see, because the orientation of the buildings has changed, and the primitive place of the buildings, the primitive place of the village are from east part, then the center, and then the western part. As you see, they go to be ordered, organized orderly. And here we want to define the blocks. According to Mortarian methodology, block means a group of isolated buildings restricted by a matrix route, planned building route, and connecting route, as we mentioned. So this place is a block in a new village, and most of the blocks are the same, in the same order. But in this village, in the old village, the blocks are different from each other, and their priority maybe, and the price of the buildings in that blocks, or the access to public places, the shops, the water reservoir are so different. We have another slide for old village blocks. As you see, we define it here. And you can see that the original texture is here, as you see that this is the primitive one, but here is more different, the style of the blocks. They get together, but they have the entrance to the building. They attach to each other, and for routes, sometimes some buildings was demolished, I think. But here they get ordered, and also we can say that each building has its surrounding routes, and place detached from other buildings. For urban tissue, we can say that this paper studies a low-level analysis of the urban tissue, which mainly considers the streets and blocks. And also for urban tissue, the position, outline, and inner arrangement of the plot is important to investigate. To define urban tissue, a composite structure including streets, plots, and buildings is needed. Here, sorry, this is moved. Sorry. So I think these are moved also, but we can consider this, as we mentioned, the old village has 3 types of tissues. Each has different characteristics, and also they have mostly courtyard houses and the same building typologies, but as you see, the aggregation style were different. But we can say the whole new village is a tissue itself, and we cannot differentiate it, and we consider just an urban tissue because the characteristics mostly are the same. So as a conclusion, we can say this research aims to use urban tissue analysis tools to study the differences in the morphology of the new village of Gavarzin in comparison to the old village. The type of the routes and blocks as the pertinent characters help the reader to distinguish between the new and old village. Furthermore, based on a study by Grove, to have a sustainable settlement in reconstruction, he had a case study of post-war. He mentions that new buildings need to follow the tissue with higher similarities compared to the prior tissues to have successful reconstructions. So in the case of Gavarzin, as mentioned, the tissue of the new village significantly differs compared to the old village. Therefore, as one of the major reasons for the abandonment of the new village, the author tried to bold the differences in the urban tissues. And also, according to the author's observation and the interviews conducted with the residents of the houses, findings are showing that the new village is not adapted to the needs of the settlement according to the interior spaces and sizes of the lots. On the other hand, the new village is not designed according to the region's climate and material considerations as well. These are my references, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. And now we will follow the order of the comments, beginning from Korami, Saidi, and Petruccioli. But if anyone else wants to make a comment, raise your hand, and you're welcome to do so. Attilio.
But look, first, I think that the presentation is well structured, you know, and also it's rather clear. First of all, thank you also for introducing from the beginning the location of the place, because that is essential. We are in a climate that is hot, humid, and therefore also the organization of the houses, the types, is organized according to the problem of the ventilation. That is the main issue there with that climate. One curiosity that I have, that I want to ask you: the designer of the new village was a guy coming from outside, and how much the local people had the possibility of controlling the design of the new village, or at least to say their own opinion, because it is evident that the new village doesn't take very much in consideration neither the local necessities nor the climate, I have to say. The other point that I want to underline, that your interesting analysis of the hierarchy of the paths of the of the streets. It's very clear, you know, and I agree about the matrix and so on, because they are more easy to locate in relation with the position of the gates and the mosque, for instance. But in general, how much you were able to understand and connect the behavior of the types and the way they are aggregated together with the hierarchy of the street. That because with courtyard houses, that is not so easy, no, as for instance with the row houses, and therefore the understanding the planned streets and the connection streets and so on is more difficult in that case. And of course, from what we see, you know, it's not very clear, very easy to understand that. Anyway, it's a good organized, it's clear, and I have also learned something that I didn't know, I didn't see before. Thank you very much.
Please apologize. I have to shift back and forward with these earpods in order to, so sometimes there's a delay in the classroom. Okay, sorry, I apologize. Now it's Nahal Korami. Attilio, Mina is willing to continue her PhD study on this issue of post-seismic reconstruction in Iran. So let's see, maybe later we can talk.
So thank you, Mina, for your presentation. I think you really improved. From the last presentations. I have some points. I have some points to mention about it. According to my experience as an Iranian person, usually this kind of reconstruction plans, if we can say reconstruction plans, are not in line with people's need and the situation of the place. And so I was not convinced that people are going to like this new urban planning, which is really regular and really different from their old village. That you mentioned that they're more close to their palms garden. Because of that, they like it. So I'm not convinced about this claim. And the thing that I want to mention is that maybe your research will be more interesting if you mention how they got this new urban planning design. Maybe it was the place that temporarily there put people there after this disaster, and they continue building there, or they study about it. I don't think so. They study about it. So, but anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mina, you wanted to answer? You're muted. You're muted. Muted.
Thank you for your comments. Sorry, Nahal, I couldn't listen all of your comments. But for the previous question, I want to answer that for this case that they relocated, the people themselves wanted to have another place. We don't know why. This is the time that they live in their tents. They don't go to their previous houses. They live in tents for 2 years to insist on having another place. They actually, the youngsters of the village wanted a modern place for living rather than a village. Because of that, they insist on that. But as we traveled there, we saw that some of the we can say older residents moved to old village secretly, we can say. So this is the case. And as you mentioned, the relation between the typology of the old village and the streets, unfortunately, there weren't much houses left to investigate, and it is going to be disappear now. So it's better to conserve like a paper, I can say, to conserve this culture and architecture. Thank you.
Thank you. Iman, and then there's a raised hand, Martina Berg.
Okay. Thank you, Mina. Thank you for your presentation. I have several comments that I wrote. I would like to first just give one small clarification. You have used some wonderful maps, but there's a lack of legends, so we cannot really understand which color refer to which. You've been comparing some elements in the old town and the new town, but if you have not mentioned it, or if it would be very difficult to understand the maps. Also, one thing, you've been talking about the social use of the some, like the way the kitchen was used in some of the courtyards in the old village and the new one. It would be much better if you make a table of comparison of the changes of the social elements that made the courtyards in the old village in the new village. Maybe it will make it much easier to understand what kind of effects helped. Also, one thing that I think is missing that could be very helpful is the construction material. We know that these places are made, the climate of this area is very hot, and I'm assuming that the old city has earth construction material or adobe construction material, but the new, there's no mention of, clearly I believe that the new the new one is probably a concrete construction. So we can also know in the construction material, we can also know that the sizes can change, or maybe the way they orient different things. Also, there's one more thing. You've mentioned something, you named it original texture in the old village. You said that there's one part of the village you named it original texture. I believe it means the organic pattern, or the core of the city. I think it would have been also much better to see the houses, the house plans within this core, and see how they are oriented within the streets. We can see an organic pattern in the old city, and if we see how the entryways and the entrances are aligned with these organic streets, it would maybe give a much more clear understanding of how this old city works. It's very clear and obvious that these two cities, the old village and the new city, the new village, are completely different with analyzing the routes and so on. But it would be much better if you go much deeper in analyzing the old city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martina Berg.
Well, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I think I would have loved the others that have presented before to see your introduction, because you need exactly 2 minutes to set us into where we are and what are the important features of this site. So I think that is a very important thing, to just get down to it very fast and rather talk about what you want to talk about. So I think it's very interesting to see this structure. I would rather try to work a little bit on the graphics of your maps, because if you compare like where these different functions are in the buildings, it would be very nice if you just put like a tracing over and draw all the plans for the houses one more time, so the graphic doesn't, so it's easier to read and so to see what is what in the graphic, so that the graphic doesn't change how we see at the houses. I think this case is very interesting because it shows very easily that that this is not the rebuilding of a village. This is a social experiment. People can't take their farm animals with them. So in a way, it's like a Brave New World on another side. The old village was organized around like what I understand to be a water pit, and the new village is just out in the dust on a field that people before didn't want to use from some reason. So it would be very interesting to do some research on the old and the new side, for example, comparing outside temperatures in the old yards and the new yards, how this changed, with how the architecture changes, also the building physics, and also social, looking at where were the meeting points, where how was the social organism in this old village, and how is this social, where do people meet now, so are there any spaces left where people can organize communal activities like like meeting on the streets and or taking care of the children. So I think it was a very interesting and very promising presentation, showing how people try to wipe out history with this type of social experiments. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Please, just some question. Thank you for this very interesting presentation. And I would like to know who paid these new houses, first of all, and from where came architects, as Petruccioli said, and which materials they used to build these new houses without the following tradition, without having semi-open places, and so. And you know, if some of these architects tried to to spend some days in these houses and to appreciate the quality of life of new project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, my comment is, okay, I have to turn like this. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much. This is a very good starting point. If you want to continue on this line of work for your PhD, it would be interesting to consider that as an option, but to build some transversal connections. So if we begin from this, primitive, we would say courtyard house. So there's a property and 3 rooms with a little portico, which you can find everywhere in the Mediterranean, but not only in the Mediterranean, even in other countries. From this one, I get the Gaberstein house. This is this, what is it called? The living room. This is the guest house. Okay, so that's, I'm not sure about the other houses in Iran, but that's what we saw in Gaberstein in the traditional. From this one, I get the Roman domes. I'm sketching here, so please apologize. It's not perfect. The Roman domes. So I got the fauces, I got the ala. It's the same logic. From the same house, primitive one, I probably get the Syrian house, which we saw before, which is very similar to the, hold on, to the Hellenistic one, basically with this logic, where that is the entrance. So even though they belong to different phases, to different civilizations, cultures, they all belong to an organism or changing type, which is evolving with different variants. And they all seem to be, and it also connects to the outer Sofa house, as Siddad el-Dam calls it, we have in Anatolia, which is usually represented like this. But if you add the front yard, it's exactly the same. So sometimes comparing different things from different domains helps us in the morphological perspective to understand that these things are changing in time. They're not objects, they're living organisms following Muratori's idea. Okay, now our last but not least presentation. Yes, sure. And sorry, there's one also raised hand from Moment, but go ahead if you want to reply. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I first go.
My
Yes.
reply is regarding to the professor.
Yes. So for the question you asked about the money, where the money came for building these houses, I mentioned in the PowerPoint, they offer 10 to 20 plots. I'm sorry, 10 plus 20. It means 200 meters plots with 80 square meters building. More than that, if they want to construct, they just want to pay themselves. But the funding came from the government and Housing Foundation of Iran's government. So the quality is like that, as you see. And the architect, I'm sure they haven't visited the village and they just design. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moment.
Sorry, Professor. And regarding to the answer that also the lady said, replied, unfortunately in Iran, I'm an Iranian person also as well. Unfortunately in Iran, in most of the earthquakes, we have the same problem. We have the same problem in Bam. We have the same problem in Ardabil, and the same is going to be in also very past times in Tabas. The problem was, and still is, the condition that the government usually use for the reconstructing the buildings, they start to rebuild like what happened in Chandigarh regarding to a very modern construction without any concern on the people and their ideology and culture. And unfortunately, there is a route. It's not, let's say, it's not because of the architecture who they didn't want to follow the case. It's the route that they said regarding to the law that accepts the by the Housing Foundation of Iran in villages, we cannot have more than 200, maximum 300 square meter for any plot. So in that case, some average of 200, 250 and 300 is the most biggest house that they can offer in new constructions. It's also followed in all of the guidelines and all of the guidance plans for the villages, and that's why we have a very, very clear problem, as she said, in the cultural interaction of the people, social cultural interaction of the people. That's a pity almost in the country. Sorry for more comments.
Thank you. And then there's another raised hand, Martina Bert.
Yes, I'm not gonna say sorry for one more comment. I just thought that it was interesting to see that this old village, you treat it in a way like it's monolithic, but the old village is also in different parts. They have different morphological tissues, and that would be also interesting to see how that developed over time. So that was my last comment. Otherwise, it's very impressive. I'm looking forward how this will continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Mina, okay, a lot of people are interested in your research, so that's a good suggestion to continue and improve. Our last but not least presentation is that of Ekrem Berkentekish, who is an architect and designer. He graduated from London University with a Bachelor of Architecture in 2021 as a honor student. During his university education, he gained experience in his own discipline, which is architecture, by doing internships in many architectural firms. Apart from his architectural education and internships, he served as an event manager for 1 year and club president for 2 years at the Architecture and Design Club, Ozukat, at the Uzigi University. He worked as a school promotion assistant at Uzigi University and also as a mentor in the organization of the high school summer school. While he is currently working as an architect at Dam Design Studio, he is also attending the master's degree program at Uzigi University Graduate School of Engineering and Science in Architecture. His lecture today, if I can find that, there you go, is entitled "A Part-of Study on Fikirtepe's Formation Process After the Urban Renewal." The floor is yours. Try to keep it within the 20 minutes. I'm going to give you 2 minutes mark before the end of the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Hocam. Thank you for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen. Hello, everyone. My research paper's title is A Comparative Study of Fikirtepe's Formation Process After the Urban Renewal. I'm going to start with my abstract. And the Fikirtepe is a district of Kadıköy, Istanbul, that once a square settlement before the neighborhood was transformed with urban transformation. According to Çinçin, Erdoğan, and Çırpı, Fikirtepe was the initial scattered layer of the Kadıköy district, and the new settlements began after 1957. In the 1980s, the neighborhood of the Fikirtepe faced unplanned transformation from the single-story slums to an apartment blocks. And the neighborhood's appearance changed dramatically after the implementation of the new zoning cadastral plan in 2007 and the designation of the area as a high-risk area in 2013. The aim of the research paper is to analyze morphological evolution of the district from its beginnings as a settlement to its current state as a result of the urban renewal. And I will examine the neighborhood street network and the effects of the urban transformation projects. According to the AYIK and Avcı, the plan notes that are released once Fikirtepe is designated as a risk area are aimed to provide building as well as consolidate existing small parcels into larger sections or blocks. The methodology of the research paper is based on the analyzing street networks of the neighborhood, comparing on cadastral plan view with current state and before the implementation of the new cadastral plan. According to the obtained data from the analysis, how Fikirtepe's morphology has been affected by urban renewal examines and its support with the literature review Fikirtepe's formation. According to the examined data, this research paper based on how street network changed and how urbanization contributes to this formation. As a matter of the fact that although the region has shown a serious change in terms of density, there are no serious differences in this street network. In region, there are some reduction of the street networks. And my case study area, the neighborhood of the Fikirtepe, which is the part of the Istanbul's Anatolian site, is situated on the low hill that rises toward Kurbaldere and is bordered by the valleys on both sides. One of the main thoroughfares in the area, the E5 highways runs along to the border, northern border. And the west is made of the Metrobus line that connects the area to the European side of the E80 highway link, and Bada Street, which is the most significant street on the Anatolian side. According to the Çinçin, nearly the only building in Fikirtepe until the 1950s was Murat's 5 hunting lodge, and Murat's 5 briefly held the empire in 1876. Around the mansion where the Marmara University Göztepe campus now lies, and the farm, which is the Sultan's private property, were strawberry and okra fields, as well as the Ashashi and the chestnut woodlands. The only recorded structure was hunting lodge built by Ottoman Sultan Murat V and at Fikirtepe. Then, viewed from this perspective, Fikirtepe is one of the first urban slums on the Anatolian side. In the late 1950s, immigrants who obtained land titles in Fikirtepe, which consist of the enormous privately held plots, started to live there and work in nearby factories by building slums on the lands they acquired. Under the zoning amnesty, which was published in 1984, the slums were made legal and the slum owners acquired shared land registry. In 1991, improvement development plan included individual title documents. Fikirtepe, which has approximately 15 houses, 420 commercial units and 530 industrial units, had population about 50,000 people in 1908, according to the data from the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality. The unplanned slum tissue had become region's morphology. However, due to the risk of the earthquake, the poor and unplanned transformation of the buildings has become a priority. As I mentioned before, according to the AYIK, Fikirtepe's morphology has changed significantly as a result of the expansion of large portions or blocks facilitated by combining the blocks of the small parcels. And I'm going to talk about my literature review briefly. And the numerous multi-actors and multi-target urban development projects are taking on the Fikirtepe. Fikirtepe is location with investment potential due to this central location at the transfer point, close to the focal points between the building and the neighborhood. According to the Artunç, these qualities make it an appropriate location for urban development and the reorganization. The projects developments will change not only the region's appearance, but also its value. Fikirtepe, which is a home to low-income communities, it is altering in many ways as a result of a regulation implemented in 2005, including its structural significance. Residents of the area are inescapably drawn to nearby districts or the cities as the region changes physically. According to the Aydın, the theme of the urban transformation practices in Turkey during the past 10 years has been public sector's constant implementation of initiative appropriate for the private sector's quest of profit. And this strategy is employed not only projects in improved parts of the city core, including Tarlabaşı and the Sulukule. After the implementation of new zoning cadastral plan in 2007 and the region designation as a high risk in 2013, the Fikirtepe neighborhood appearance went through a major transformation, and the emergence of fresh development and habitats change over duration. Istanbul's recent history, one of the theoretical subjects that has been truly studied. And my aim of this research paper is the morphological structure of Fikirtepe is mostly determined by the settlements from the area before the only started in 1957. However, as I previously stated, the designated plan notes allow for the combination of several parcels to create bigger island, and the high-rise structure were created in these islands. So the aim of this research paper is to analyze how the neighborhood street network has changed as a result of the urban renewal, and I will evaluate the effects of the urban transformation projects. The methodology of the research paper is the study will utilize the Muratorian School of the Urban Morphological Proposed Technique, which is based on comparing the street networks to the current with those before 2007 introduction of the new zoning plan, and based on the data collected, the impact of the urban renewal of Fikirtepe's morphology is examined, and the literature review regarding this change is utilized. And the statistics will explain how street network change and how urbanization influenced their formation of the area. As you can see off the right corner of the presentation, the Mandra Street, that is, as you can see in the figure 3, which connects the Fikirtepe to these highways, is assumed to have originated in this region. And we can define this road is the Muratorian School, the Matrix Road. This road borders the large region of the Istanbul, Fikirtepe, and the Göztepe neighborhoods. The settlement of the neighborhood starts toward the hill, where it's located as we move into the following stages and planned development routes and development in this direction. Since this is the premature settlement, as we already explained, we can see it is located toward the hill. However, we are unable to see any traces or indication of the reach roads and that lead to this hill. According to the reach theory, this Mandra Street, which we define as the matrix route, can be described as a cross-reach road. For the planned building of new road during the subsequent stage of expansion after the formation and the completion of the blocks. In this situation, the programming calls for the new batches to be easily identified and oriented orthogonally to the new path, as well as the frequent force synchronity of the successive construction stages to be built on the side of the route. And you can see the connection roads in the figure 5. And if we analyze the street network of the Fikirtepe, I'm sorry. We can start Fikirtepe street network on the cadastral plan that I required from the Kadıköy municipality, but they didn't give me the permission of the new buildings construction plans. So I just analyze the street networks and I compare with the 2007 street network and the 2022. We can see the particular scheme from this plan chart, just we did from the earlier analysis how roads are formed. We frequently notice construction activity along designated construction roads. As IX mentioned, this settlement's new plan notes was released after 2007. And additionally, it is intended smaller plots will be consolidated from the new larger parcels according to the publicly released plan notes. As we will see in figure 7, this prediction does really come to the pass as intended, and all parcel size have altered in this direction. But many streets have also been added to this parcel. Some new streets have appeared, and some streets have changed in size, and many roads have been maintained. And it's clear that the row houses discovered in 2007 as a result of the urban renewal have disappeared entirely, and all of them demolished. And my conclusion is it has become an important region for Istanbul, Fikirtepe, and this research paper has investigated a morphological change brought on by the urban transformation. The morphology of the area witnesses significant transformation as a result of urban transformation, even though it's largely proceeded according to the cadastral plan. And despite the fact that this formation generally regarded as a positive, it's obvious that has a little to do with the area's history. Large-scale unplanned roadways networks, buildings, high earthquake risks, and the narrow streets have all seen tremendous development. And we can see that many streets have vanished as a result of the expansion of the parcel and the inclusion of the streets between two parcels as the parcel expansion. And a new street has emerged as a result of the maintaining the major lines. Even new structures are constructed. And we can observe that is the purpose to design street develops and regular neighborhoods. And these new residential units which are designed under construction offer a more effective layout. And this is my presentation. Thank you for the listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, before we have some kind of a roundtable open discussion between the discussants, we can now ask the Sadi, Petruccioli, and Cadino to comment on Ekrem, and then we will open the roundtable to all, okay?
A general comment is that the way you have presented, I mean, with the text and then you read the text, it was really difficult for us to follow in a certain way. You should, you should present your work, and you talk and you show images and you comment the images, and that will be much easier for us to follow. This as a general term. I think that your interpretation of the structure of the settlement is correct. It's also very clear in itself because of the organization, and it looks like all plot put in a raw way, and then and served by streets, and it looks like planned in a way, and so it was a sort of very spontaneous and logic way of organizing things. So I agree about your idea of the matrix that actually is a cross reach at the bottom of all that system, and that serves with all planned, all equal, almost. I think it's very also interesting, the fact that very peculiar in a certain way to find a sort of illegal, spontaneous system that actually has such clarity. Probably I would have added to the presentation some images, of the architecture, showing how those types are how they are organized, but more importantly, what they are, in a few words. And if, for instance, in a special nodal point, like intersection between matrix and plan street, if you have some nodal elements, if the type changes, has some variations or things like that. So the corner is important, probably, etc., etc. Well, listen, that's it.
Thank you, Iman.
Thank you, Ekrem, for your presentation. I have a few comments. Like Professor Petruccioli said, that you have lots of writings but less maps. You've also mentioned that this Fikirtepe falls on a hilly nature and it's a promontory settlement. It would have been nice to see it on a map drawn, maybe to show the contour lines and where everything lays down. It would be much more interesting, much more important in explaining this study. Also, you've used the term comparative study, but I believe, in my personal understanding, that comparative study, you need to show at least some historical maps so we can have an understanding of what we can understand from what you're saying that there's a change happening, but we do not really grasp the comparative aspect of it. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, and then was it Kadim?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Akram, for this presentation. Very interesting case of wrong organization of the developing of the slums. The slums are a problem in many European and generally in the whole world outskirts of big towns. Now, when we see this kind of density, the absence of the green places inside and in relationship with the so many families, so many houses that I think must live there. I don't know the number of the inhabitants. I don't see a place where the people can meet, and squares or greenery or others place where the people can bring to school and to marketplaces. At the end, this example you bring us shows the absence of a skill of planning, and when they permit to this contest to be legal some years ago, in the 80s, as well, in 85, if I remember well, they started to construct a very dangerous social problem. Also because from one side we can fear phenomena like earthquakes. In the other side we can think that the health of the people there can have many problems in the future. And so you tried to construct and a development structure of the place, but also better would be to construct some proposal for the future. What should happen in the future in this place? Maybe we had to demolish half of the houses and leave green and free spaces to the others. Maybe we must to move some population. Maybe they had to construct new houses in another place, maybe following the Istanbul tradition of living. I don't know, really. Also, because if I have heard and listened with very attention your presentation, Akram, I would like to understand better which kind of houses and the street and families stay there. Maybe in the future you can present some images of also one or two houses and explain better the condition of the life inside this place. In any case, thank you for this interesting presentation.
Thank you very much. Now, I got a question. Is the place?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so you basically came to a dead end because it's not completed yet. and you
Yes.
are not able to publish the plans. So if my suggestion is, if you were to continue this paper for confidence, paper, or even for your master, probably you would have to focus a little bit more on what was there before, because what is going to be there is not there yet, and the drawings are not available. So in your title, it would have to look at the older Fikirtepe. You can do a little bit more analysis on the older one, because the new one is not there yet, so you cannot describe it by going there, and the plans are not available. So you came to a dead end, in a way, but one half of the research is very well done. So my suggestion is if you were to continue, don't drop the new project. You can keep it, but focus a little bit more on what was there before. Trying to look at the buildings, what they looked like, what building types there were, how they were organized, and take a closer look at, maybe you can take one block and analyze the block in terms of the formation process of the urban tissue. And maybe if you can find one or two plans of one of those houses and compare them with other examples. I don't understand how it works. They have a front yard, they don't have a front yard, they have 1, 2, 2, whatever, okay? Because maybe if you were to publish a paper on something that is construction, you might have trouble. So I'm just, we don't. You used to say, what you're going to research. You start and you figure it out later. Okay, but whatever information you're able to find and process, you will work on that. What you cannot find and process, you not work on it. Okay. Now, Martin, about proposal to have a roundtable discussion between the discussants. If you want to chair that, you can do it. So, please.
Yeah, I thought it would be interesting to just that the discussants are discussing among themselves some impressions and some thoughts about the presentations. That was my thought.
Yeah, so the chair is yours. You organize this. So you can start yourself and then the other will follow.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea was that we were discussing among ourselves.
So you want to begin?
No, I'm sorry if I'm misunderstandable. I thought that we should, with the 5 or 6 of us, should sit together and discuss. So not to include the whole audience.
Oh, you want me to stop recording, send everyone away? No, we cannot do that. I mean, stop recording. Let's leave it as a panel, okay? A round table. So you want to continue with your own thoughts, and then we can pass it on to someone else. It's okay.
Yeah, I was especially impressed with this case from Iran, from Mina. I think there is something very interesting. This case being on an island, being as is such a clearly case of government intervention into urban processes, which we also could see at the Skopje case, where you can see all these settlements from the 60s and 70s, also as a case of government intervention into urban processes and the resulting urban tissue. So I think this is it gives us a very interesting insight into the 20th century, driven by new urban ideals, modernism, and where we actually arrive on what kind of consequences do these interventions, these government interventions, have into the social fabric of a city. It would be very interesting to see, to interview these people in this new settlement in Iran, to discuss with them how do you experience the social interaction in the village. Was it where did you meet people before? When did you discuss? How often did you meet other people? and now in this new living in this new structure, how has that changed? So that would be very interesting to see. Besides of the building physics things that I have mentioned before, it would be interesting to see to analyze airflow and temperature in this new village. So I think generally some of these presentations, in a way, we as academics teaching people to present problems. I think we should be encouraging people to speak freely. Please don't read your slides to us. That is very frustrating. So I think we have to be better in teaching people to how to present their thoughts. I think also that some of these presentations would have very good if they would sit down and say, well, what do I actually want to analyze? What is my research question? And try to reduce the scope of their research to this research question instead of trying to do everything, which is often very difficult and very complex.
Thank you.
I'm doing little consultancy now in the Arab world, and I noted that there is a growing concern about the problem of the identity and the tentative, or at least the suggestion, to pursue an identitarian language for the new extension, for the new design of the city. That is sincere, I think, no? For the first time. Before it was just a formal thing like that. And in that sense, I'm very glad because I believe that the foundation characters of the city, of a settlement, you know, they are there since the beginning, since the origin, you know, either from the nature or from the first replies of the man to this morphological natural condition. And those characters are kept in the evolution of the city all over the time. Even now, I think, of course, with the difference that up to the 19th century, they are quite readable in the type, they are quite readable in the layout of the fabric and so on. And then after that, only in certain elements, in certain details, in the organization of part of the apartment, you know, like the divan, for instance, things like that. But I think that what we should be able to find, you know, is this continuity of the presence of this original character in it. In that sense, the three papers of Mina, Tekis, and Skopje, with different results in terms of product, but they are interesting because we can read, we can try to read what remained of the original foundation character in the modern city. I make a paradox. Even in the modernistic socialist planning of the Yugoslavia in Skopje, in which the fabric is completely disrupted and discontinuous. I mean, just made of objects, you know, completely separated from the streets and so on. So exactly the opposite of the precedent. But there, carefully, we can find some elements, you know, that are preserved. And we have to keep them and vehiculate into the contemporary design, you know, as much as we can. So we have to pursue the idea of continuity more than the idea that every part of that city is a different episode, you know, that happened in history and without connection one with the other. in that sense, that is the research that could be very extremely interesting in that case, you know. The other two, the other two, the one by Al Hussein and sorry, okay, and by Rakhtar, though again with different results, are interesting research that are more connected with the other type and the relationship with the fabric. And that's also an interesting field that we have to continue to explore, because if we believe that particularly the residential type is connected to the place and that the local culture and that doesn't travel and so on, I think that it is in this kind of research that we can find those characters that we can then apply for the contemporary design too. That's enough for now.
Thank you, Marco. Marco, are you there? Cadino, are you there?
Ah, sì, parlo io.
Yes.
And so, was a very interesting morning. And I see that many problems of the cities that we see this morning together are very similar in Arab world and also in the European world. Also in Italy, for an example, we have had some very strange cases of reconstruction of new villages after the earthquakes, like the case of Mina Jafari show us. And we have seen that the new reconstruction were organized without any planning skill, forgetting totally the tradition, forgetting the way of living of the people, and constructing new villages really very, very strange to see. In any cases, I don't want to see more. Just that all the relations, like from a side of methodic comment, like Martin said, would be more simple in choosing the topics without expanding so much the organization of the presentation, and without is not so useful to read the text, long text of the slides, and also sometimes would be very useful to choose images more useful to take by the hand the people who listen and show clearly the the thesis that you must show. Also, regarding the use of the plans, generally us in distance, we can't read so well the cadastral definition of the cities. So big plans became quickly not clear and useless. In any case, thank you for these 5 presentations, and I was here to learn something from your word, and it happens, and I am very happy for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Nahar and Iman, do you want to add anything else?
Thank you for Professor Kemis for letting me to be part of this situation and seminar. And I want to thank you, the students, for their presentations. I really learned from them. And thank you, juries and other people who gave great and useful comments. Thank you all.
Similarly, I would like to thank Professor for allowing us being part of this discussion. And the students have chosen great examples that have massive potential in studying cases that show different problems taking place in urban settings. And yes, thank you very much. And it was nice seeing everyone at this conference.
Thank you. So our seminar is over. We can